Good morning, Year 11. Welcome to our literature lesson of the week, first of two, on Jekyll and Hyde. So today we're going to be looking at the different aspects of both Jekyll and Hyde, both internal and external. So the title that goes into your book is The Differences Between Jekyll and Hyde, and then in brackets AO1, AO2. AO1 is the assessment objective that trains you to retrieve information from a text, and AO2 is the language and structure, and we're going to be looking at a bit of structure today as well. So put those assessment objectives there. You're going to need a pen, some paper or your book, and some highlighters. So go away and get those, write the title into your book or onto the paper and underline it, and then go on to the next slide. And you could have had Hyde is younger, lighter, happier in body. Hyde is shorter, less robust and less developed. People are physically repulsed by Hyde. Jekyll is more serious and older. So there you go. You've probably got some others. You can upload them at the end of the lesson and I'll have a look and see what you got. Now your first task is to come up with reasons to be Jekyll and reasons to be Hyde, because this is a debate that runs through Dr. Jekyll's head pretty much all the way through the book. You know, whether he'd be better off as Mr. Hyde or Mr. Jekyll, and he did, or sorry, Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde. I mean, he did originally, the original motivation to create Hyde was to have someone where he could go off and do these dastardly things and then come back and be the upright Mr. Jekyll, and no one would know anything about it, to separate the good and bad so that the bad didn't interfere with the good. That was the original motivation, or certainly a large part of it. So draw a table, reasons to be Jekyll, reasons to be Hyde, and read this extract here, and I want at least 3 reasons to be Jekyll and 3 reasons to be Hyde. And not unsurprisingly, here's the moment when Jekyll can't wrestle with himself any longer. He takes a draft and turns back into Hyde, or turns into Hyde. But time began at last to obliterate the freshness of my alarm. The praises of conscience began to grow into a thing, of course. I began to be tortured with throes and longings, as of Hyde struggling after freedom, and at last, in an hour of moral weakness, I once again compounded and swallowed the transforming draught. I do not suppose that, when a drunken reasons with himself upon his vice, he is once out of 500 times affected by the dangers that he runs through his brutish physical insensibility. Neither had I, long as I had considered my position, made enough allowance for the complete moral insensibility and insensate readiness to evil, which were the leading characters of Edward Hyde. Yet it was by these that I was punished. So he's tipped over into being Hyde. The temptation is too strong. It's a very morally complex book, this. I mean, particularly for the Victorians, it constantly leans into the fact that to be Mr. Hyde is significantly more fun than to be Mr. Jekyll. Task 2, how is Hyde different after Jekyll's abstinence? Abstinence merely means, or simply means, not drinking, not going out partying, living a very ordered life. You're abstaining for all the fun things, if you like, or the things that can lead you down a dark road. So Jekyll takes these 2 months, doesn't he, where he lives a very morally high life, and then he finally succumbs. So I want to see, how is Hyde different? So this is how is Hyde different to what he was before. How has he reacted to Jekyll keeping him under lock and key this time? And I'm going to read this, actually. I like this. I like it all, but I like this extract. I particularly like the opening sentence. My devil had been long caged. He came out roaring. I was conscious, even when I took the draught, of a more unbridled, a more furious propensity to ill. It must have been this, I suppose, that stirred in my soul that tempest of impatience with which I listened to the civilities of my unhappy victim. I declare, at least, before God, no man more morally sane could have been guilty of that crime upon so pitiful a provocation, and that I struck in no more reasonable spirit than that in which a sick child may break a plaything. But I had voluntarily stripped myself of all those balancing instincts by which even the worst of us continues to walk with some degree of steadiness among temptations, and in my case, to be tempted, however slightly, was to fall. Instantly the spirit of hell awoke in me and raged. With a transport of glee, I mauled the unresisting body, tasting delight from every blow. and it was not till weariness had begun to succeed that I was suddenly in the top fit of my delirium, struck through the heart by a cold thrill of terror. A mist dispersed. I saw my life to be forfeit, and fled from the scene of these excesses, at once glorying and trembling, my lust of evil gratified and stimulated, my love of life screwed to the topmost peg. So make some notes. I want at least 3 things in there, 3 bits of evidence, 3 quotes that show that Hyde is different to what he was before, since Jekyll's had him under these 2 months of lockdown, if you like. And here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 quotes that you could have had. You may have found another one. I'd be interested to know. But there we are. There's 5 that show how Hyde is different after Jekyll's kept him been abstaining from living the Hyde's horrible life. Now here there's quite a subtle structural point. It shifts from the first to the third person. He's talking about Hyde, or the narrative is to do with Hyde, and it goes from I to he. I arranged my clothes as best I could, and summoning a passing hansom, drove to an hotel in Portland Street, the name of which I chanced to remember. So all the way down there at the inn, as I entered, I looked about me with so black a countenance as made the attendants tremble. Not to look did the exchange in my presence, led me to and brought me wherewithal to write. Right, and then it's about here. Hyde in danger of his life was a creature new to me, shaken with inordinate anger, stung to the pitch of murder, lusting to inflict pain. Yet the creature was astute. See, it's the third person now. Mastered his fury with a great effort of the will, composed his 2 important letters. So it's gone from I to him, his, he. What do you think is the significance of that shift from the first to the third person? Write a short paragraph. You can add this to your notes. It starts to refer Hyde as a creature, his inner animal, so it separates him from himself. Shows the distinct separation between the personalities and Jekyll's desperation to keep control. He, I say, I cannot say, I. The third person description suggests the same revulsion that others have experienced. Do you remember people see him and they hate him, but they don't know why? That child of hell had nothing human, nothing lived in him but fear and hatred. And one final task here, the final days. What can you work out about how each of the personalities is feeling at this time? So just put 2 headings: Jekyll's feeling in the final days, Hyde's feeling in the final days, and I want 3 quotes. So 6 quotes in total, 3 under the Jekyll part and 3 under the Hyde part, showing how they're feeling in the final days. Photograph your work, upload it to Class Charts, and I will have a look, and I will reward it with with achievement points, should they be deserved, which I'm sure they will be. So shame we're not together, Year 11, it really is. But there you go. I will speak to you again soon.